Oh, let me back. Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back. It is Monday, July 29th. Welcome back, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, grannies and gators. It is going to be a busy roller coaster ride through the insanity and the shenanigans, and a lot of good news from Canada. So, we can look around what's going on out there and, cry or throw our hands up in despair, or we can laugh and make the most of it. And so tonight I'm going to take a little bit of a different spin on what we all see going on out there in the dumpster fire of the world. So, as always, guys, thank you for tuning in wherever you're tuning in from. Thank you, Minnesota. Nice to see you in the house. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Let us know that we're actually getting it out there. But now more than ever, we need your help. This is a symbiotic, co necessary relationship. I need you guys to help me get the information out there. And so a like, subscribe, and a share goes a long ways. Tonight we're going to we're going to celebrate and rejoice. And I want to ask people out there, when they see the the repercussions or the ripple effects, shall we say, of what's just happened in Paris. Did we just witness the suicide of wokery? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. First, though, guys, I got to give out an apology. We were supposed to have a meeting for a bunch of folks on Saturday. And due to some derailment of technology and time and confusion, we didn't really get a chance to do that this past Saturday. So we're going to do it this coming Saturday, and we're going to start organizing and showing other people how we are organizing to stop funding the companies. Let me pull this banner off for a second here. Stop funding the companies that support the Great Reset, i.e., the Olympics and some of these other insanities that we're dealing with. So, on that note specifically, this will be where we will gather this coming Saturday. Everybody will get a little bit more warning in advance. I do have the link here. I'll drop it in the chat for everybody this time, so you guys will be able to get it. And make sure that you get plugged in. This is not going to be public. It's not going to be streamed. It's not going to be available anywhere else except for getting together with us over here next Saturday. And I believe that starts at noon Eastern time. Just making sure that it gets out into everybody's chat here. I want to see people. I really want to get a chance to talk to some people about some of the stuff that we're doing out there. Looks like we're having a little trouble on Facebook. We're supposed to be streaming to Facebook, YouTube, X, of course, Instagram, Wimkin, and Rumble. So make sure that you double check that you're getting your notifications and your messages. Make sure you get down the link that I just shared with everybody for this, and we're going to get over to, did we just watch the suicide of wokery? I'm going to pull up a couple of, see if some folks are getting in here now. Awesome. Niagara in the house. Excellent. Esky Dogs, good to see you. Thanks. I say that often when I'm in other people's chats. Really, we're hostages in our own country from a hostile regime. So it's nice to see it coming back from Manitoba, Maritime, Canada. Excellent, awesome stuff, guys. Hey, Allie's dad. Who else we got in your house here? I think I popped up Little Farmer, but I'll make sure that I did. Hey. Mo, this is going to be a good one, guys. I'm going to kind of race through some of this stuff. Little Farmer from Lindsay on Terrible, Kelowna. Awesome. Looks like we've got coast to coast out here today. Where are we going to start with this? If this, I'm not going to give the video or any of the imagery any kind of life. I'm not going to breathe any kind of life into it. It is what it is. It was what it was. But if people need a sign as to what it was, that was the church in Paris, the Sacre-Cœur Church. Forgive my poor French, but they were lit up while the Satan and pedo worshiping was going on at the launch of the Olympics, and the fury and outrage and coming together of Christians since then in objection to this, I think is, I hate to say it, a little bit of exactly, no, it's a whole lot of exactly what the world needs. And I absolutely think it's way overdue to start to deal with this insanity that's been foisted upon us. Hey, Risa, my old friend, nice to see you. Hey, Stefan, back in the house. I miss my Facebook followers because I don't get to see you over on Rumble, or if I do, I can't recognize you. But I'm surprised that I'm still streaming on Facebook. It's kind of telling me on my dashboard that I'm not. I can't communicate with you directly there. So it's just weird shenanigans that make it difficult for people to actually tune into this show, and this show specifically, guys. You guys deserve props for being part of a community that makes our government quiver in fear. From Widgley, awesome to see you guys. So back to the article. So this was a reshare and a question from Meryl Nass, but the article itself, and I'll make sure all of this is in the Substack tomorrow morning, and just to make sure that everybody gets all the free extras on Substack. Down below, right below my shining face, you will see a link to Substack. It has all of the bonuses and the perks, except for the meeting stuff, the organization of community. I see people all the time. We got to stop. We got to stop. We got to stop. We got to stop them. Well, everybody and their dog has an idea of how to stop them, but nobody wants to kind of mesh those ideas into things that will work. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing on Saturday, and looking at different things that we've got established already. So far, we've got a team of 250 in one aspect that are working towards defunding these monsters. And I'm looking forward to expanding on that. So this article, and I'm only going to read the first paragraph of this. Everybody can go and look it up tomorrow and read the rest of it. But because it's definitely PG-13, shall we say? And although I don't agree with the vernacular and verbiage that everybody uses, I think that this was worth highlighting at least the first paragraph. So, did we just witness the suicide of wokery? I think you saw what's called in the argot of progressive thinking the queering of the Olympics, the hijacking and making it, turning it queer. That was some spectacle. First, Death on a Pale Horse came galloping down the Seine River, so that no one would miss the point of the symbolism to follow. The beheaded Marie Antoinette portrayed sitting in the window of a flaming palais. Revolution, anyone? Then a tableau variant of Da Vinci's The Last Supper, queered to the max, with a tattooed land whale in the Jesus seat offering a Satan hand signal among the swaying drag queens. Plus one child ostentatiously in the mix. Say what? Followed by a blue Dionysus crooning about nudity new on a giant fruit platter with his junk clearly on display among the cherries and nectarines. It rained, tant pis. The power went out, and Paris ceased to be the city of light. Hence, referring to this imagery. So there's a lot to unpack and digest there, and this is obviously the reason why this article intrigued me is this is obviously not somebody that is a Christian that wrote this, but yet he is absolutely standing up and identifying the absurdity and the capture of what that was. And I think that that's something that the world needs to grasp, and take a look at this. And this whole story about the woke Olympics, and the insanity that it's turned into. This was such an insult to the greater world's population. And It should be embarrassing to us when nations like Iran and Russia don't take part, albeit for many other reasons, but they stand up and publicly address the insult that this is or should be to all Christians. And that just rattles my brain to the max. Um, we have supposedly or allegedly the worst enemies of our societies actually standing up for our societies where we won't. Disturbing. That being said, there has been a lot of peaceful protest against what has happened. The people coming together. I'm going to see if I can pull up a different image here that kind of is a little bit more representative of what the response was to that insult to actually the intelligence of the entire world. It's interesting that X isn't really letting me find some of the imagery I was finding earlier. Um, that's okay. I'll keep looking here while I'm talking. But there are 50, tens and tens of thousands of French came out, Christians, Catholics, for a candlelight vigil the next night, I believe it was. And I'm not following this. I won't give it any light or life. But there was an appropriate response to this, and I genuinely think that this is kind of marking a turning point, and Europe may just be leading the way a little bit on that. So this is where I'm going to introduce you all to somebody else who's definitely a nasty part of all of this, but it comes to us through a different story than what I expected. Um, so I'm going to go back to right to the beginning of where I'm going to start off tonight. All right. So, conspiracy theorists, otherwise known as people capable of pattern recognition. I tell people all the time, I don't have a crystal ball. I just recognize patterns in systems. It's a simple thing. Um, it's part and parcel of what I used to do as an accident investigator. Just so it was this just is natural to me. It's not for everybody, and I understand that. But pattern recognition, according to IQ test designers, is a key determinant of a person's potential to think logically, verbally, numerically, and spatially. Compared to all mental abilities, pattern recognition is said to have the highest correlation with the so-called general intelligence factor. Um, According to a study in Psychology Today of January 2018. I don't know about IQ or anything else like that. I just know that I see shenanigans and I see systems and I see patterns therein, and I address them and I bring them to the public, or I find people that can um, uh, make those, accurate statements. I ask questions and find experts that can answer. I do want to pull this up. Can you confirm that Facebook and Google are censoring news about the Trump assassination, implying that it didn't happen and that Google is hiding the search? 100%, it's happening. There's one of the things that I encourage people is Elon could build a new Google in 5 minutes. He's basically got the same mechanics already established in X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So I think it's high time for them to lose their monopoly. I mean, it's not really a monopoly, but they control 99% of it. So yeah, tens of thousands, many thousands. The upside down narrative is falling apart 100%, 100%. So there's a lot to celebrate in this, because it's becoming intolerable even for the rest of the greater world. And that's what we need to happen. It's these things aren't just happening in our country; they are happening everywhere. And this woke capture of everything that's been funded by these organizations under Klaus Schwab and George Soros and the usual suspects, designed only to disrupt and destabilize and, create culture wars, color wars, the same things that they use to destabilize every nation that they want to ultimately destroy and rebuild. Because you got to remember, they get paid for both sides of the destruction as well as then the rebuilding. You look at BlackRock in Ukraine; they're getting, the military-industrial complex is making large, and everybody's getting a cut off the top for the big guy along the way. And now they're going to own Ukraine and every other nation that's been in conflict since then. And once they finally capitulate and prostrate themselves for the Black Rocks and the Bill Gateses and the George Soroses and the Tedroses. So, sorry, Donna, your comment is too large to put up there. Yeah. Uh, Thanks for giving it a share on Facebook. Facebook is brutal. If they're going to allow me to do this, it's only going to be a short period of time. I was off Facebook for almost 3 months. They wouldn't let me back on. So this is show number 6 that they have allowed me back on. So I really, really hope people get plugged in on one of the other platforms. Get plugged in on X. Get plugged in on Rumble. Get plugged in on Substack. Those are where we're not having any interruptions. So that's the see, it's happening. Freezing up on losing me on X. I see. This is the point, and I have people that let me know from day to day what it's like for the users on the Substacks. Yes, and it's also, I see a comment over on Instagram, which I don't. Oh yeah, don't get to share on here with you guys. Da-da-da. Yeah, there's a lot to look for. I don't want to say the silver lining, because there's a long ways before we get this insanity over with. So the week by week, we have to still keep going, but most people aren't getting told or notified of the wins. So this week, I'm going to start off slightly differently. Last week, I liked to give a shout out to Dr. Trotsy, and he gets together with Ted Kuntz of Vaccine Choice Canada, and every week we get together. During this summer, they took alternative weeks off to let people live, but every other Friday we get together for a kind of a update and leadership meeting. There's hundreds of people from different organizations across the world that take part in this, and we talk about all of the different things going on at the grassroots level. And so it's really hard to bring it all to light at the same time, but this was a way for me to multitask and give kudos and props to Dr. Trotsy, and some of these other guys that are doing good fights, and I can use theirs rather than rewriting it all for myself. I can share their news. And so here we're going to start with Dr. Trotsy's and Ted Kuntz's wins of the week. And this was published a couple of days ago on the 20th, or yesterday, I guess, on the 28th. So congratulations, friends. It has been an exceptional week for the truth and freedom movement. State and provincial governments are standing against global agendas and federal malfeasance. Canada's Supreme Court is countering federal authoritarianism. MPs and citizens are calling for Trudeau's long overdue arrest. Tennessee's court and New Hampshire's governor both took major steps to protect children against pedophilia. So did the UK. Gender confusion and other perversions. COVID truth is being shouted from the rooftops. Lawsuits are being launched and won against the COVID crimes of governments, Pfizer, and vaccine-mandated employers. There is also great health science news, important H5N1 solutions, new resources, stories, and laughter in this week's wins of the week. So I'm just going to kind of skip over a couple of these real quick. So just to make sure, we don't miss anything important, and there's some other stuff that we can chime in on here a little bit. So politically, the tide is starting to turn in the U.S., where they're signing bills that are vetoing How schools, businesses, and medical establishments should consider transgender related issues. So, big shift happening there. The UK just ruled to end puberty blockers in kids and teens. Um, Links don't work. Yeah, if links may not work in the chats, guys, and if people start to spam the chat, and then they're probably going to have a moderator help them take a timeout anyway. So there's everybody's got a channel on a platform, and we do our best to share others that are working from the same place and space, right? So Alberta's Premier Daniel Smith has promised the province's Bill of Rights will be amended this fall so that there are protections added for people's personal medical decisions. So that's, people are listening. People are listening. This is, when this all started going on, I knew that the wheels of justice moved ever so slow compared to the real world, where life just never stops 24/7, 365. It is ticking by this digital space, and it's interconnected internationally, so it never stops. And the justice system and that and reality are disconnected in that respect. So telling it like it is, Dr. Michael Yeadon, a former vice president of Pfizer, provides some pretty blunt words that tells it like it is. We're in the middle of the biggest crime spree in history. It's global. It has the intent of control, removing everybody's freedoms, and will involve killing further millions, if not billions, of people. It is long planned. If you comply with this tyranny, it will end with the loss of your liberty and probably your life. And that's what's going to happen if you and everybody else choose to do nothing at all. You have to be brave now. I cannot argue with him. I've got a bunch of slides that I put together today. So I kind of had an idea that I was going to put them up in a specific order, but that rarely works for me. But to do all we can and still to fail is one thing, but to fail to do what we can is quite another. Whatever the outcome, both speaking out and keeping silent will always come at a price. As for me, I would rather pay the price for speaking out than the price for keeping silent. So I can't argue with him in the slightest in that, and that's going to be what it's going to take. But understanding that we're pattern recognition and specialists, and do not allow them to disregard or denigrate or silence or intimidate us. Why? Because they lied about everything. They lied about tobacco. They lied about mercury. They lied about opioids, aluminum, talcum, sweeteners, saturated fat, GMOs, raw milk, cholesterol, fluoride, glyphosate. But now they're telling the truth. I don't think so, folks, and I know most of you don't think so either. And what are they lying about again? This is I'm getting wound up, and I'm going to end up getting ahead of myself. But that is going to be something that they really need to get in touch with. But we're going to go a slightly different direction. Something else they lied about. Diversity isn't your strength. It lowers your wages, marginalizes your culture, increases your crime, fills your hospitals, occupies your houses, ruins your schools, consumes your taxes, tightens your laws, restricts your freedoms, endangers your children, and calls you a racist. Can anybody argue with that as a lived experience of this diversity experiment that they keep foisting on Canadians? That we're seeing our government spending $20 million in Guyana to teach them not to poop in the sand. But yet, what do we have here in Canada? A major outbreak of people doing exactly that. This is how diseases and societies and plagues happen, folks. And this diversity is what we're supposed to accept or be labeled racist if we don't. Um, this is beyond measure, beyond pale, beyond sanity, beyond expectations, beyond reasonable expectations, and is absolutely 100% intentional, not accidental. These are not people that are just coming here for a better life. It is a replacement migration, exactly what we've been talking about. And this report kind of got leaked a little while ago here that was crafted in 17th of March 2000. I'm going to read just this highlighted portion for everybody, for those who are there on the 4x2s out there, focusing on these two striking and critical population trends. Now, I'm going to read the whole part. Um, Replacement migration is a solution to declining and aging populations, regardless of the ones that they're taking out intentionally in the world's biggest bioweapons assault in the history of the world on unsuspecting and innocent societies. But I digress. Replacement migration is a solution to declining and aging populations. United Nations projections indicate that over the next 50 years, the populations of virtually all countries of Europe, as well as Japan, will face population decline and population aging. The new challenges of declining and aging populations will require comprehensive reassessments of many established policies and programs, including those relating to international migration. Focusing on these two striking and critical population trends, the report considers replacement migration for 8 low fertility countries: France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Republic of Korea, Russian Federation, United Kingdom, and the United States, and 2 regions, Europe and the European region. Replacement migration refers to the international migration that a country would need to offset population decline, which, our liberal government, never willing to leave a good crisis go to waste. He wasn't going to be left out on that in any way, shape, or form. So let's hear. Uh-oh, I'm going to have an issue with this. It's not going to. Let's see. YouTube and Google have really been messing up today. Let's see. Because it won't let me share the audio on what I was going to play for you guys. No, YouTube will not let me pull it up. It's interesting because I can open it up on YouTube on a different browser, but it won't let me play it from this other browser. Let's see if the audio comes through on this, guys.
There are already immense pressures on our system, yet Trudeau thinks the solution is to bring in even more people. This video is a prime example of a leader completely unqualified for his job. Is Trudeau's delusional solution really helping Canadians? Let's discuss the reality of his so-called solutions and how they are impacting our nation negatively. First off, it's no secret that our healthcare system is struggling. Wait times are up, resources are stretched thin, and healthcare professionals are burning out. Instead of addressing these critical issues, Trudeau seems to think that increasing the population will somehow solve our problems. It's a move that defies logic and common sense. Trudeau's approach only adds to the burden. With an influx of people, the already overstressed healthcare and social systems face even more strain. Emergency rooms are crowded, hospitals are at capacity, and finding a family doctor is becoming an impossible task. The Liberal government has had 9 years to fix these issues, but under Trudeau's leadership, things have only gotten worse.
Under Trudeau's leadership,
the housing market is another area where Trudeau's policies are failing Canadians.
Under Trudeau's leadership, we've gotten 42% more people this year already than we did all of last year. That is his solution. So anybody that doubts the idea or the concept of this population replacement theory, he literally states it. Maybe I should let you guys play that. Let you guys hear that.
More people coming in, demand for housing skyrockets, driving prices up, and making it even harder for Canadians to.
I didn't have this queued up very well as far as for Trudeau's speech, but yeah, I know you guys really don't want to don't want to hear from him anyways. And how serious are these people about making sure that he gets his population replaced? I'll pull up this video for you all instead.
Bombshell allegations of hypocrisy have rocked Trudeau's government to its core, threatening to shatter Canada's global image as a principled defender of human rights. The controversy erupted after whistleblowers exposed the Liberals' discriminatory double standards in refugee policy. Officials warned Trudeau against granting special treatment to Ukrainian asylum seekers, but political pandering trumped expert counsel. Now Trudeau faces accusations of favoring trendy causes while neglecting desperate refugees. The stunning lawsuit claims Trudeau's Liberals ignored warnings and prioritized Ukrainian refugees. Trudeau built his brand on compassion and moral clarity, but insiders allege that behind closed doors, political calculations drive refugee decisions more than humanitarian needs. With an election looming, the scandal threatens to destroy trust in Trudeau's integrity. How will the PM escape scrutiny this time? Revelations of two-faced politics undermining refugee human rights have left Trudeau's critics demanding answers, while even loyalists whisper shattered illusions. Trudeau risks being unmasked as just another vote-seeking politician playing fast and loose with people's lives. Welcome back to Street.
So I'm going to stop that one right there. So the base of the allegations is that he's giving double standards to Ukrainian refugees, and it's interesting because I've gotten some off-the-record feedback that, from people that are having issues with the Ukrainian refugees not respecting anything or not having any work ethic. Well, they don't need to, because Trudeau is very comfortably picking up the tab for all of them.
Trudeau's out of control.
And there's more. We're going to spend a little bit of time on some of the stuff that is throwing, shall we say, aviation fuel into the dumpster fire of the Trudeau government. Absolutely. 3,000 people from Gaza. He won't face his own cabinet. Absolutely. Everybody's getting Ukrainian refugees, and they're getting them on the dime. These people are being brought on the host nation's dime, no expense spared. So this is beyond insanity. And I want to bring up just another graphic that I came across today that I think bears understanding. There's a lot going on in elections this year, last year. I've got a video pulled up here that I'm going to play with you guys. I've seen some others that have been talking about.
Obviously
the elections, the current election and the current election cycle. But this is kind of the timeline of Venezuela, and we didn't get to see the collapse of Venezuela. They removed that, if everybody remembers correctly, they removed all access to the Venezuela situation, exactly like the Google is doing right now with the Trump assassination attempt. And it's interesting because we were all warned that Google was capable of doing this and was capable of stealing elections. People didn't want to believe it; they didn't want to buy it. But this is beyond putting into the box now, and especially with something as blatantly clear as the assassination attempt on Trump. But this is the desperation of the deep state, and Venezuela is not out of trouble. As a matter of fact, I think that they're in deep, and we need to pay attention to what's going on in Venezuela, because it is a direct reflection of what we're set up for, the same, tick list of, probably not in the same timeline, but Canada is absolutely the next Venezuela. So in 92, they became the third richest country in the hemisphere. 97 became the second largest purchasers of F-150 trucks. 2001 voted for socialist president. Income inequality. He was going to make it equal for everybody. Universal basic income, right? Sound a little familiar? In 2001, private health care is completely socialized. Well, Our healthcare has been completely bought up by big pharma, 100%. Not a single Canadian taxpayer dollar goes to pharmacare or healthcare in Canada. It all goes to the Ukraine and elsewhere. 2007, all higher education becomes free. Socialists banned private ownership of guns. What are they trying here? Pretty obvious there. Bernie Sanders praises their American dream. Opposition leaders are imprisoned. That's the democracy we're fighting for in Ukraine, and giving billions and billions of dollars to for that kind of democracy, for an illegitimate dictator that jailed all the opposition and all the churches, pastors and preachers in the country. And yeah, pretty bizarre. But hey, that's democracy, right? Food and healthcare shortages become widespread. This is a part that scares me. That's some of the things that we're going to be talking about on Saturday in that private meeting. The Constitution and elections are suspended. Gee, that happens. That doesn't happen in democracies, not like the ones in Ukraine anyways, right? Does it? Or Venezuela? Unarmed citizens massacred by their own government. Pretty much the timeline of Ukraine, just with different numbers and perhaps a slightly different order, but at the end of the day, it's the same outcome. And one of the things that I've seen here is this attempt, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we talked about them using words. Like, for example, this is a big one, the international rules-based order. Well, a rules-based order has nothing to do with law and order, and the international community gets to decide which rules apply to thee and don't to me. So that's kind of, in essence, what they're reestablishing on a global scale. And if you don't like it, this is what some of the experts are starting to say. This was in May, just a couple of months ago this year. Too many angry young men with no prospects, say top Canadian psychiatrists, leading push to expand MAID access as means of combating growing ideological extremism. These mental health specialists argue many young men prone to extremism would likely opt for MAID over engaging in acts of terror if the option was available to them. That makes my blood run cold. Makes my absolute blood run cold. This is where they are already looking at the youth in our country as being dangerous and hostile, and providing a state-sanctioned solution, right? I want to pull this up because about the fix in the next coming elections. Well, we're going to talk about that here for just a second. Well, in just a second. Let me get this pulled up. Let's go. We're gonna sit through this one. This one is an entire 6 minutes. Some other people have kind of come across it today. I watched this last night, and I knew this was kind of going to be one of the meat and potato points in the show tonight. So let's listen to this guy and talk about elections. I don't know if any of you guys here that have seen this, but this will be in the Substack tomorrow as well.
Obviously, there's not a question about whether or not they have free and fair elections in the United States. Why would they? Why would you think that they did? They interfere with elections all around the world. They interfere with the election just recently in South Africa. They interfere with elections in Georgia. They interfere with elections everywhere they go. They subvert democracy all around the world. What makes you think that they wouldn't subvert democracy right there at home? Of course they do. Well, I think that they interfere and subvert democracy in their own country more effectively and more comprehensively than they're even able to do it in other countries. And we know that they're able to do it in other countries extremely well and extremely effectively and get the results that they want. So do you think that they're not going to ensure that they get the results that they want in their own country? Of course they do. You'd be naive to think that they don't. They didn't just find out that Joe Biden has experienced cognitive decline. They didn't just find out that the man has dementia. all of those people in the Democratic Party who were pushing for him to step down or pushing for him to not seek re-election, they've been interacting with him. They've been talking to him. They know perfectly well that the man has lost his mind. And they've been knowing that for 4 years, and they didn't mind. This isn't about wanting him to step down or wanting him to step aside because they think that he's not competent. No one ever thought he was competent. What it's about is that you know that when your own people, your own Democrats, your own liberals are making fun of Joe Biden online, on social media, on television, in the mainstream media, and so on, the man has become a laughingstock. That means that him winning in a rigged election wouldn't be plausible. No one would believe that. It was barely believable even in 2020. So there's no way that you could get people to actually believe that Democrats turned out in significant enough numbers to give Joe Biden a victory in 2024. He was asked to step down or asked to step aside because the Democratic Party knows that if they want to sell their appointed president to the public as if they were democratically elected, there has to be some degree of plausibility to that. You see, if they could have, they would have given the Democratic Alliance in South Africa the full victory, but it wasn't plausible. So there has to be some degree of believability. I don't think Kamala Harris is any more popular than Joe Biden, and she's not much of a better speaker. It's a choice between Kamala Harris, who always sounds like she's a little bit drunk, or Joe Biden, who sounds like he's in a perpetual fugue state. However, with Kamala Harris, you have certain factors.
The term that I coined, CKLR, and I've been screaming for since the night of the Brexit countdown, was the manufactured destabilization. But from there, it absolutely goes to devolution and continuity of the devolution of the continuity of government. So yeah, they're absolutely messing with the continuity of government.
Will be very
now.
appealing to the liberal base, to the Democratic base, that allow you to craft a narrative that makes her victory plausible, regardless of whether she gets the votes or not. If she's appointed as the winner in a rigged, unfree, unfair election, which is what you have in the United States, because, as I say, that's what the United States tries to ensure you have everywhere else in the world. So you better believe that they make sure that in their own country, it's just as controlled and managed a process as it is a controlled and managed process anywhere else in the world that the U.S. has a hand in it. So when they appoint the candidate whom they want to win, who they've decided to win, who the oligarchs have decided should win, they need there to be some democratic plausibility to that win to make people think, either make people think that yes, they did this candidate did in fact win, or you make such a convincing and coercive and manipulative narrative around that candidate that no one will admit that they didn't vote for that candidate. In other words, she's going to be the first woman president. Well, wouldn't you be ashamed of yourself if you didn't vote to break the presidential glass ceiling? She's a woman of color. Well, wouldn't you be ashamed to say that you didn't vote for a woman of color? Well, that would make you a racist. If you don't vote for her, then the only two reasons that could possibly be is because she's a woman and she's a woman of color. So that means you're a misogynist and you're a racist. So you can craft a narrative around her that everyone will want to say that they voted for her, even if they didn't turn out to vote at all. Because we're going to hear nothing for the next 3 months except how excited the Democrats are, how reinvigorated they are, and how thrilled and breathless with anticipation the American people are for being able to finally achieve this first woman presidency in the United States. Everyone is excited about it. So therefore, when she's appointed as the president, if that's what happens, when she is appointed as the president, everyone can believe that the hype got her elected, even if no one shows up at the voting booth. And when everyone starts cheering in triumph and applauding and congratulating themselves for being so progressive and so liberal as to elect the first woman president, the first woman of color as president, well, no one will be willing to say that they never voted for her. So it's a very, you have a lot of strategies that you can use to convince people that it's either believable that she won or it's unthinkable that you would deny that she won. So I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but I don't for a second believe that they have free and fair elections in the United States. And I think you'd be a fool to believe that.
Instructed to enter challenge ballots into.
So I don't know anything. I don't know who that man was. I don't know if that was a fake video. I don't know anything except that he brings up some incredibly important points, and they're going to make it very difficult for anybody to choose. They're going to put you on the moral crucifix no matter what you do if you don't buy into Kamala. That's what they're, I wish I knew who this guy was. I'll do some digging and see if I can find out who that guy was. But there's so much to what he said in there, and I wanted to pull back up to Billy's comment. What stage of Bezmezov's vision are we in right now? I don't, right? Really? We that refresher course has come back so many times over the last couple of days to kind of haunt the whole universe of the insanity that's going on. So I think that they're terrified of Trump because he will end the Ukraine conflict, and to me, there's still so much that doesn't add up, but absolutely they are terrified of Trump in this election. And so the instant they came out with the poll saying that Kamala was even close to Trump, it was absolutely, that's when I knew they were going for the fix. And I've seen videos today of these giant Zoom calls with nothing but women in them and going, oh yeah, we got to organize, support Kamala. Well, if Kamala gets in, all of your sons and daughters are going to be dead in conflicts that mean absolutely nothing in places like Gaza and Iran and Ukraine. That's what you're going to get with Kamala Harris. And so these women that are screeching in support of breaking the glass ceiling for Kamala Harris are absolutely the deaf and blind and liberals. I couldn't agree with you more, Tammy. She always sounds like she's drum hammered. It really does. Hey Murphy, good to see you. It's one of our American friends. Photo ID and fingerprint requirements that they don't have in the US. I can't speak to that, but I can say that there is mass challenges in the country right now by people that are saying that it was rigged, it was fixed, and I guess we're going to have to wait and see how the evidence turns out. But this has been a long cycle of stolen elections in Venezuela. I'll be paying more attention to that. I think that they I think they have somebody else in mind, yes, but I don't think the others in mind want any part of trying to save the Democratic Party. I don't think that anybody with half a brain would not want that job at all. It does absolutely 100%. Brenda Raven does a disservice to women and minorities. She has already said some of the most outrageous things, and there's no way that if anybody's listening to the Black community that they support Kamala. I don't believe for a second. 100% very disliked, most unpopular. What stage? I don't want to say which stage we're at exactly. I think that we're kind of between stages, Billy. Definitely between 3 and 4. If this year is going to be the pivotal year, if the world doesn't get ahead of this wokeism and globalism this year, then it's gonna speed up, and we're going to see Orwell's vision turned into the practical thing that we're gonna have to deal with. The reality versus fantasy. I'm going to be getting a fella on here that can hopefully help people deal with exactly that. Wow, so many comments to go through here tonight, guys. I'm going to get back to what I got going on here, because I'm going to end up going way overboard. But this is an important one. We need to touch on this for just a minute or two so people can kind of get an idea of, and I'm going to show you what was leaked.
Scoop Canada, we've got some hard-hitting news that you won't want to miss. Today, we dive into a shocking revelation about Justin Trudeau's policies and the devastating impact they've had on drug-related deaths. Pierre Poilievre is calling out Trudeau, and it's time we take a closer look at what's going on. Pierre Poilievre tweeted, "What is wrong with this man, and he's not wrong to ask? Trudeau promised to reverse his drug decriminalization policy in British Columbia after it led to a nearly 400% increase in drug deaths. Yes, you heard that right, a 400% increase, but now it turns out Trudeau has been secretly planning to implement this disastrous policy nationwide. It's hard to believe, but it's true. His wacko agenda is not worth the deadly consequences." Let's break it down. Trudeau's initial policy in British Columbia was supposed to help manage drug addiction by decriminalizing small amounts of drugs. The idea was to reduce the stigma and help addicts seek treatment. But what happened instead? A catastrophic rise in drug deaths. It's clear that the policy failed and failed miserably. Yet, despite these horrifying results, Trudeau seems to be doubling down on his misguided approach. The Liberal government's handling of the drug crisis is just one more example of its incompetence and reckless decision-making. Trudeau's policy didn't just fail, it led to more deaths, more heartbreak, and more families torn apart.
Now, I'm not playing this as an endorsement for Pierre Poilievre. There's no answer in Pierre Poilievre. We cannot vote our way out of this, guys, and I'll get on that in just a few minutes. I'll close out with probably what I think is the biggest story of the day that I'm going to cover, but I'm going to bring up what they're referring to in this national decriminalization program. And what was actually leaked was that they continue to work with willing jurisdictions to use all tools at their disposal to address this crisis, including approaches to decriminalization. But they're planning on adding things like crack and cocaine and heroin to the list. So they're going to be bumping up the number of drugs that people can access from these clinics in these safe distribution centers, etc. So kind of comes back to this lady and what they have planned for the youth. If it would be a way for them to deal with the problem, the final solution. This is what they've got planned for us. But the good news is there's more good news, is that they're not really going to get away with it. Now there was a bunch of other stuff that I was going to cover here tonight, but we're not going to get to that because we're going to do something else, and I'm going to play this video instead. And I never like to say I told you so, but I will say I freaking nailed it. Ladies and gentlemen, I nailed it. I've been talking about this for a couple of years. I've been saying that it's coming since people started talking about election. I said this one's going to be very, very different, and I tried to tell people why. People think I'm batshit cray-cray, and I actually genuinely think this is one of the reasons why they keep this platform, this community so dethrottled and hidden. You guys need to hear from the people in Quebec exactly what I've been telling everybody is coming. So check this video out. Oh, I'm trying to get it started in the wrong spot. Go figure, right?
Justin Trudeau has finally pissed off Quebec enough to the point where there's this new party that formed in 2022 called the Canadian Party for Quebec. Now, not only do we have the Bloc that are trying to be separatist, but we got these guys as well, and they're actually pushing for another referendum, but this time a lot more seriously. Here's what they had to say.
Hello and thank you. My name is Will Tulin, the Canadian Party and youth critic. I hail from Pontiac, Quebec, a beautiful region and our nation's national capital region. The same Pontiac where the state Canadian movement was born back in
I do want to touch on this question here from Tammy for just a sec. The NDP and Libs, there's a lot of people talking about the Trudeau's party merging with Jagmeet Singh's party. And I didn't get the graphic in time, but even if they do that, it's not going to save them from what these guys are announcing in this video. And I just want to see here when it came out just a day ago. What these guys are doing throws a wrench into all elections discussions. So at this point, the Liberals and the NDP merging is still not enough to beat Pierre, according to the polls. But again, I don't think it's going to much matter if these guys have their way.
1996, and where the state Canadian motion was passed throughout the majority of our municipalities. The Pontiac and Quebec, in general, are no stranger to having the Quebec government.
Tammy, if you're in Manitoba and you want to separate, you're going to cheer for this party's announcement.
Play Anglophone and Francophone against each other. This has continued with recent legislation and the passage of Bills 96, 21, and 40. These unconstitutional and un-Canadian bills have been met with no pushback from the federal government or the Prime Minister, the same Prime Minister and Cabinet with the mandate to defend the Canadian Charter. Alarmingly, these unconstitutional bills have been passed in the province where both the PM and Speaker of the House gained their seats. Now, if the Prime Minister and government wish to sit idly by with the passages of these legislation, then I ask them to allow for a federal referendum in Quebec to allow the people to decide their path forward. A federal referendum allowing the same notion of staying Canadian before the separatists jeopardize our country's unity. My message is to the Prime Minister. Do your job. Uphold the Charter or allow there to be a federal referendum in Quebec for declared regions to stay Canadian. It has become painfully clear that the only time Quebec enjoys the word equality is when it's used as it collects equalization payments that it receives from the rest of Canada.
I call that communism myself, but hey, they want to call it equalization payments, but yet they still think they're getting treated poorly. He'll get introduced to in a second. I see your comment there, Esky Dogs. Who is this guy? He'll get introduced real sec, but he's just the opening act, shall we say. The guy coming up next, really, you're going to find interesting.
We need to ensure the Charter of Canadian Rights and Freedoms is protected in Quebec and upheld. This referendum is vital for youth to stay in Canada and remain in the country they love. For too long, the youth have left their home province because of this. Thank you. I now pass it over to the leader of the Canadian Party of Quebec, Colin Standish.
So the youth party, the Quebec Youth Party is working with these guys. But this is the boss.
We are the Canadian Party of Quebec. I am co-leader Colin Standish, and I'm standing with Murtis Fossey to my left, party co-leader, and Will Tulin, youth critic, to my right, and as well joined by Keith Henderson, a member of our board of directors, former leader of the Equality Party of Quebec. Murtis is a psychologist from Ville Saint Laurent, and Will hails from the Pontiac region as a student at the University of Ottawa. Keith is a former professor at Vanier College. The Canadian Party, an official provincial political party in Quebec, offers a bold, forward-looking, federalist vision of Quebec to encourage a renaissance that makes our province a major economic, cultural, and linguistic rights hub for Canada and all of North America. We are
a federal jurisdiction.
Serious established, responsible citizens who have been abandoned by the mainstream political parties, federalist and provincial. And we believe Quebecers deserve a better option. We have created a political party since 2022 to speak on behalf of people orphaned by the political process. English speakers, allophones, French speakers, Indigenous peoples, and visible minorities. We are looking to our communities and all of Quebec society for support and input to our next steps. We are a party that stands for decency, fairness, and respect for rights. In particular, we stand for minority rights, Indigenous rights, linguistic rights, religious freedoms, bilingualism, and national unity. We are here today to implore the Government of Canada, members of Parliament, senators, ministers of the Crown, members of the Privy Council, and all Canadians to take definitive action to protect the interests of Canada and Canadians in the province of Quebec. A profound constitutional revolution has transpired since 2019, where the Government of Quebec has seized jurisdictions, notably labor and intellectual property, has a new constitutional status that no other province has, formally assists in appointing Supreme Court justices from Quebec, and with not just federal acquiescence, but with the complicity in undermining the legal, constitutional, and moral fundamentals that bind Canada together as a country. These changes place the arbitrary dictates of a party in power in Quebec's legislature at the pinnacle of the determination of human and civil rights, unbounded from the protective framework that governs all other Canadian provinces.
I hope you guys are reading between the lines on this a little bit. So they're literally, because the Separatist Party has basically co-opted the provincial government in Quebec and allowed Justin Trudeau to implement unconstitutional and illegal policies into Quebec. These guys are basically coming together to say, if you don't fix this, then we want to separate and we will bring the people with us.
This revolution is insidious and appears to be aimed at undermining the ability for Canada to survive and function as a coherent nation state. Some of the most significant aspects that have transpired in the past 5 years are Bill 96 and other associated legislation spoken about by my colleagues, Bill 21, Bill 40, and also the Oath Act, our fundamental and illegitimate restructuring of our society, province, and country. As well, Bill 96 in particular surgically excises the English language, speakers, their institutions, and associated civil and human rights from the province of Quebec. Bill 96 additionally diminishes the civil and human rights and fundamental freedoms of all Quebecers, regardless of mother tongue or language of choice and ethnic background. In particular, the rights of Quebec's First Nations and Inuit communities are also diminished.
When they give these migrants and immigrants immediate status and rights and privilege above us, that's what he's really basically speaking to there.
The proposed unilateral constitutional amendment in itself is, of course, unconstitutional and ill-advised public policy. Changes to Bill 101's interpretive framework alongside Bill 96, the Quebec Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, and other provincial laws will distort fundamental freedoms and human rights for decades and centuries to come if they are not changed. Freedom of expression, commercial expression and practice, work and employment, contractual liberty, and educational freedom are further constrained for all Quebecers, regardless of linguistic group. Bill 96 and the Oath Act, including the implied restructuring of our Constitution and Quebec's legal status. Taken as a whole, the terms Quebec Nation, only French-speaking state, parliamentary sovereignty, Parliament of Quebec, and Quebec spelled erroneously with an accent aigu, all seem to be factually, legally, constitutionally, politically, and morally confer and imply an illegitimate legal status that Quebec does not have.
So what he's saying there is all of the documentation that they're putting out there that is misspelled or inaccurate and reflects actual jurisdiction has absolutely no real jurisdiction. That's some pretty powerful allegations or statements.
Additionally, the aspects of Bill 96 which purport to confer some unique and singular officialdom on the French language are either declaratory and symbolic or of no legal force and effect. These matters are simply outside the legislative competence of the Quebec legislature.
When many of you guys will be familiar with Doug Force's description of actually all of this and how these laws that they keep implementing have no actual force and effect. Well, this is exactly what he's saying in regards to Quebec, and he's basically laying down the gauntlet.
The two proclamations of nationhood are seemingly defined solely by the French language, and they are twofold. Quebec nation. Quebec is recognized as a province with a defined territory, defined jurisdictions, and legal status in the 1867 Constitution that territorializes the concept of nationhood. Nation is once again inserted in the Constitution within a binary power structure. Federal government and provincial governments, a nation is not contemplated in our constitutional framework. As well, these legislation declare that French is the only official language of Quebec, in the sense that it's clearly in reference to legally defined province of Quebec. These two proclamations of nationhood are seemingly defined solely by the French language. These amendments clearly amend and contradict Section 133 of the 1867 Constitution, which accords equality of status in English and French in Quebec's legislature, courts, legislation, and regulations. When will the government of Quebec act? When will Prime Minister Justin Trudeau take a look in the mirror and realize that he's not standing up for fundamental freedoms in the province he represents? The time is now to allow Canadians in Quebec to choose to remain Canadian in territory, rights, and freedoms. Thank you.
So now this guy's, I think, is a far more pragmatic and succinct approach to separation. They're literally saying, you guys are messing with us. You've been lying. You have no force and effect in your policy. And we know. And your options are to fix it, or we will establish our own nationhood, their own federal nationhood, however they determine that to be. And the important distinction that I want to make out of this is it only takes one. This is the thing, this is where some of the terminology that you guys probably first heard here on this platform about de facto being unlawful, de jure being lawful, odious debt, meaning smelly debt, debt of the criminals, debt of the crooks, constitutional conventions. That is exactly what this guy is talking about. And I can tell you that there are people across this country that also know and also understand and are also preparing for the inevitable conclusion, because we know that Trudeau's not going to be able to resolve this problem. So Trudeau has two solutions: create another crisis, another disaster to take advantage of, in amongst all of the dumpster fires that are going on right now, and the insanity going on right now. Or he's going to, so he's either got to fix the country or he's going to lose the country, and it has absolutely no bearing on any of the shenanigans, the gaslighting, the astroturfing, the lies, the insanity that they've been perpetrating across people of our entire country, creating this division, this insanity. Dang, we're going to run a little bit late, guys. Two more stories that are really important for people to understand. And this one here, I'm kind of surprised. This one comes to us from the Toronto Sun just a couple of hours ago, from Lauren Gunter. And I think for me, after 15 years of fire and rescue, I'm going to set you guys up with a little story. Way back in the day, folks from Alberta might remember, long before Fort McMurray burned down, a town called Slave Lake burned down. Well, about 8 years before Slave Lake burned down, I spent 10 days of my life in the most dangerous situation I've ever been in my life, stopping the fire that should have burned Slave Lake down. Literally, 10 days in the most dangerous circumstances of my life. Literally melted the windshield out of my fire truck, stopping the fire in Slave Lake. And when we saved that town, we told them how to protect that town. We told them, and we told them, and they didn't do it. Wouldn't you know it? A few years later, it burned down. Fort McMurray is burned down. Other places have burned down. Now we've got Jasper burning down. And it is not Mother Nature's doing, guys. And I am so pleased to hear what Lauren Gunter had to say here today. I have to share this with you all.
In the coming weeks, you're going to hear an awful lot about how climate change caused the devastating fire in Jasper last week. Don't believe a word of it. Already there are Liberal MPs and environmentalists who've been saying, see, this is what happens when we don't get our emissions under control. We need electric vehicles. We need wind turbines. We need solar panels. We need heat pumps instead of furnaces. That's not what caused it. What caused this was woke environmentalism at Parks Canada. For nearly 25 years, Parks Canada has been refusing to thin out dead trees in Jasper.
100%.
By last year, 44% of all the trees in Jasper have been killed by a mountain pine beetle infestation. And Parks Canada just let them stand there. They were like giant matchsticks.
100%.
Going on for kilometer after kilometer. Environment Canada and Parks Canada had thinned out about 1.6 hectares of the forest. And
here's the thing with this particular fire that I want to make very, very clear. Most of these fires likely are set. In this particular case, I don't believe it was. I don't believe it was an arsonist. A lot of people are looking at that. It absolutely is intentional, but it's not for the same reasons. And I can tell you, this is the same thing that we told Slave Lake before they burned down. Is exactly what he's talking about here. People don't understand these forests, these coniferous forests. This is hardwood. It burns so fast and so hot. When you get a dead forest like this, it is literally a firebomb looking for a place to happen. It could have been the most innocuous thing to start the original fire. But the fact that Jasper got lost, that is something else.
And there were tens of thousands of hectares that were affected. So what they did was largely useless. They promised that they would plant 520,000 new trees. They planted a few thousand, under 10,000 by some count. The Liberals just aren't very good at planting trees, apparently. They promised, of course, in 2019, they would plant 2 billion across the country, and they've so far planted maybe 40 million. But that's not the point. The point is that Parks Canada was told again and again and again, first by the Alberta government, then by its own conservation scientists, by the mayor of Jasper, by professional foresters that they hired to evaluate the forest at Jasper. They were told again and again and again that a mega fire was coming if they didn't do something to get rid of all of the dead trees in Jasper. And they did nothing. I think the kicker, though, came this week when it was discovered that an internal report prepared for Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault said that Jasper was a particular problem, that Parks Canada acknowledged it had done nothing or next to nothing to mitigate the fire risk. And going forward, its new parks plan should focus on that. But they knew that for nearly a quarter of a century, they had done nothing. And that's why when the fire struck last week, the forest in Jasper burst into flames. Huge flames. At one point, the firefighters estimated that the wall of fire going at the town site was 100 meters tall, 300 to 400 feet tall.
I've fought fires like that in exactly that kind of forest. And it's unfathomable, the heat and how high that goes. I've watched helicopters almost get sucked in to the fires trying to drop their water bags on them. They're literally getting sucked out of the sky until they dump their water. I've seen these trees launch like missiles. The ones that are still alive, when the fire gets to them and they're so hot, they don't even have time to burn, but the sap boils in them and gets pressurized at the bottom until they launch like missiles into the sky. That's what happens because of neglect.
And the other thing that Parks Canada did, so it ignored all of these warnings, it also didn't ask for Alberta's help in fighting these fires. Alberta has a lot of experience fighting wildfires. For instance, Alberta has
100%
night vision firefighting capacity, so they can fight 24 hours a day. Parks Canada can't fight at night. So as soon as it got dark, Parks Canada had to stop fighting the fires coming to Jasper. Alberta has this technology that allows them to throw up huge walls of water in front of huge walls of fire and prevent fires from advancing as quickly. Parks Canada didn't ask for that help. They were told, as I said, again and again and again, that they had to deal with these standing trees. 44% of the forest in Jasper was dead trees. They had to do something about that, and they didn't. And that's why, when the fire struck last week, it was so utterly devastating. For Post Media, I'm Lorne.
So I spent, for those that don't know, I spent 14 years as an industrial fire and rescue specialist. I only went to work when it was somebody else's worst nightmare. Kind of put that life behind me. I don't talk about it much, but this really, really infuriates me. You know, these people are so intent on virtue signaling. We had abilities. How we saved Slave Lake, they wouldn't have been able to do it in Jasper because of incompetence. We use what's called a surfactant that is like it's like a dish soap kind of foam that seals stuff so the fire can't burn. Right? They could have blanketed that town in surfactant and nothing would have burned. But they're too damn cheap. They're so busy with the virtue signals and committing the crimes and getting their cuts and getting their green policy. And at the end of the day, this was approved by Stéphane Jabot. So this rests directly on their tables. Fort Mac was all of the governments involved at the time. Rachel Notley at the provincial level and Justin Trudeau allowed Fort Mac to burn. This is willful negligence and not incompetence. This is willful negligence and corruption that destroyed a good chunk of Canada's legacy, Canada's identity. And that really upsets me. So yeah, they use a powder chemical that's causing lung and breathing issues. Something like baking soda is equal equivalent. They do anything that they can to justify adding extra complexities to firefighting. It's really, you said it, Old Saucy. It's personal. It's personal. I spent my life, the better part of my physical best making sure that everybody went home and nobody suffered. And now these guys weaponize that in order to manufacture their crises, their climate crises. So yeah, this is all part of the destabilization, the manufactured destruction, the taking out of our culture, and the weaponizing of everything else. I don't know. It's very tough for me to take sometimes. I gotta say it, but I think I'm going to leave it there. I had a whole bunch of other stuff. I will pull up just a little teaser beezer for one of the stories that I was going to do tonight, but got way too long and I got a little too emotional. So it's time to drop it off at this. But tomorrow is going to be jam-packed as well. Again, guys, for those that have been keeping up, and I know it's not easy to do since I committed to 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Central, 7 Eastern. I have been jamming some serious amounts of information into every show, every single night and producing the links and all of the information in the Substack that you can find down below. So a little teaser on some good news for tomorrow that we're going to dive into, and I want to talk about this tomorrow. We're going to have James Roguski on for a little later this week, just kind of narrowing down a time to give us an update. But there is no buzzard, bug, flu, none, zero, nothing. The powers that be are trying to use the fake fraud overcycled RT-PCR process to create a pandemic. And that's from Dr. Paul Alexander, one of the best medical forensics experts on the planet, bar none. So I just want to leave everybody with a little bit of good news after that crisis and chaos stuff. Gets me a little frazzled sometimes when I get emotional with this stuff, but I do this is from the heart. I do this because this comes from the heart. I'm compelled to do this. This wasn't my dream job or ambition, but 5+ years ago, I decided that Iraq could do better than what billions of dollars were going to the Legacy Media Fund for. So I've become one of the reasons why people don't trust the government, and I'm proud to do that every single day, as are a bunch of the the independent, authentic media personalities that we've kind of grown in our community over the last little while. So I want to always reassure everybody, go and support your favorite independent journalist, the one who is taking the hits and doing it because they love you, the people. Are doing it to serve the people rather than as a business model. So again, got the Substack out there. If you want to contact me, you could do that at contact@whatsupcanada.org. And get, if you missed some of the links from the meeting next Saturday, whatever the case might be, I know I've got a few people to answer there that were looking for Saturday's links. I didn't forget you. It was just got scrambled and rearranged. I will get a link to you for this coming week. And if this is I guess my last message, if this is the platform that you love, trust, and support, this is the best way that you can do that, through a donation at donate@whatsupcanada.org. And I put this one out there, guys, because this is the one that comes directly to me. All of the other platforms I get, nickels and dimes from here, $5 here, $5 there from Buy Me a Coffee, but they all take their cut. If you donate directly to me at donate@whatsupcanada.org, or if you want my snail mail address, email me that. It's you guys that keep this from going behind a paywall. I would quit before I would force people to pay for the truth. And I just can't see myself quitting. So you guys keep me alive in how we fight this fight together. So on that note, I love you all. Stay Canadian, stay American. Remember what you're fighting for, my fellow patriots, friends, family, heroes, hostages. I love you all, and I'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Bye for now.